Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at play-up props on Friday here with 12 games on the NBA slate. We also have best bets up in a separate episode, bringing both of these to you each and every weekday moving forward. So make sure to subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Give that video a like as well. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first play-up prop for today.
Yeah, I'm going to keep going with Tyler Hero here. I know, huge game against the Pistons might be a bit of a letdown, but with no Aaron Nesmith for the Pacers, I think it's still a very good matchup. They don't have any sort of defensive stopper. Obviously, no Jimmy Butler out for the Heat, which is why, we're targeting Hero, who in 2 games without him now has seen a 32% usage rate, 33 points per game. In 38 minutes, hit 7 threes per game, got to this number despite committing 8 turnovers at Minnesota. So, this is a much easier matchup than Minnesota, even than Detroit on the road. Like, Pacers defense has been a little bit better. They limit assisted field goals. Maybe they've been lucky with 3-point shooting percentage because they are still giving up the attempts. And since they've lost Nesmith, like the number one option, because he's their number one stopper, has gone, pretty buck wild. Like Franz, 29-6, Franz, 28-6, Brunson, 33-10, LaMelo and Brandon Miller, both 30-6. Kairuka obviously did their thing. So I think Hero can have another game. The thing is, he was much improved to start the season, even when Jimmy Butler was in there, because Jimmy, let's be real, isn't doing much in November anyway. And he was averaging, 26 a game. Oh, the last 4 with Jimmy Butler on U.S. soil, because I'm throwing out that Mexico City game where apparently Hero could only play 20 minutes because he ain't built for that elevation. But 28 points per game, 22 for 43 from 3. Only went under this against Denver when he had 24 and 11 assists. So he is very much taking up the mantle of a Heat offense that has not much else. In the half court, and Pacers are playing more half court ball right now. I was looking at the under here a little bit, 228, just because the Pacers are not the same Pacers of last year going up and down. But look, I think the way to play this is just the prop bet with Hero just being the hero that the Heat need.
Yeah, maybe. I'm on a strict no Heat diet, but this is the only play that makes sense that I could see even from afar, which is Hero points and stuff without Jimmy Butler in there. To your point, like most frustrating player in the world, Jimmy Butler, I just can't get next to it. I was thinking about Jimmy Butler. It's like when you were playing video games and you like got all the way to the boss and spent all your time getting to the final round and you lose, and then you got to come back and start at the beginning and you're like, man, just bring me back to the boss. I don't want to have to deal with all this stuff again to get back. That's Jimmy Butler in the NBA playoffs. Is basically just like, oh my God, another regular season? Can we just get to the playoffs already? And that's where he'll start to do his thing. Hero's taken full advantage of the lack of usage from Jimmy, and now he's not even in. So he's clearly option 1 and 1A, to be honest, on this team. But let me go ahead and get to my favorite play, man. I cannot get away from this. It's one of these things that I'm backing so hard in my brain for my eye test and everything, and that's Devin Vassell. And he's at 14.5 points. And I hit it last night, and I don't think it hasn't. I know it hasn't moved, and I don't know if it will or not, but I just don't know if people are seeing what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing what I'm seeing partly because I watched all of the second half of the Wizards and Spurs. 1, because I'm a glutton for punishment, and 2, because I was like, why isn't Stephon Castle scoring more buckets in the second half after he had 9 points in the first half as the starting shooting guard? Oh, Devin Vassell is taking all of the shots, including like 11 of them in the second half. Got it. And that's what this team wants. And then you read on a little bit more and you do some digging and you hear the coaching staff and the other players saying, like, we are starving for Devin Vassell to be on the floor. We don't have a shooter. We don't have a shooting guard. We don't have our leading scorer from last year, which is Devin Vassell. The backup head coach, I can't remember, Martin, forgot his name, the guy who's subbing in for Pop right now, Get Healthy Pop. It was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Devin Vassell breaks his career scoring record in his first game back out, was the quote that he put out. But he still didn't get the start. I think he might be in the starting lineup tonight. Even if he's not, we're going to see him get back up close to 30 minutes again. 27, 28 minutes would be the floor that I would put for him if he really is as healthy as it seems like he is in his 4th game back. And in his first 3, he still had 21, 12, 17 points. And that was all in about 22, 21, 25 minutes. minutes ramping up, the field goal attempts, 9, 13, 6, 14 in this last game. And it's this last game where I said 11 in the second half. That's what I'm super focused on for Vassell, is that they were trying to bring him back as the most important offensive player in crunch time as well. And they did. They managed to do that. This is a dude who just signed a $135 million contract for 5 years. They need him in the lineup. They want him in the lineup. And the only reason he hasn't been out there for 33, 34 minutes so far is because of a toe injury, which seems to be receding big time. So 14.5 is super mispriced for a guy if he's even close to 100% healthy. I think this is potential ladder play to like 20 plus.
Yeah, I mean, he might need a few more minutes to get 20 plus, although he did get 21 right in one of these games, and he just has the ultra green light, like you're saying. So I mean, 1 for 8 from 3 last game, and exactly. They're just like, keep shooting. Like Chris Paul's fine with you hoisting. Wemby needs to get down low. We need better spacing. So yeah, that's why Vassell coming in is a big deal for the Spurs, and Mitch Johnson, the interim coach, just to clean that one up there. But
thank you.
Though Brandon Boston is quickly becoming a show favorite here with the Pelicans down to a complete skeleton crew. And look, MGM we've highlighted is the first one to get these lines up, and right now they're only offering 8.5 rebounds, assists, and it's juiced up. I think you can probably get 9.5 at other books eventually here. Also, though, over 2.5 turnovers at MGM is plus 130. That is a fantastic price for a kid who just had 7 turnovers against the Thunder in his last outing, because he's just being thrust into this really interesting role as the point guard for a team that just has no other guards or playmakers. He's made in these last 3 62.7 passes per game, which is 30 higher than anybody else on the team. Next highest, Brandon Ingram. Third highest, Jose Alvarado, who's also out at this point. So that's led to 10.7 potential assists for Boston, 5.7 actual assists. He's also second highest rebound chances in that span, 12.7, grabbing 7.7 of those. I like going with the peripheral stats here because I don't trust this young guy to score, even on a Nuggets defense that's going to be pretty depleted, without Aaron Gordon. The reason I was going to say under is a best bet here because it looks like Nikola Jokic might not play. It's completely up in the air. He's got some personal matter to tend to, but without Aaron Gordon, the Nuggets are playing much faster. Their defense has been much worse, 120 defensive rating these last 3 without AG. So there's going to be at least an opportunity for the Pelicans to pile up some stats, to get up and down the floor, and for Boston to get a little more comfortable. Certainly the rebounds will be there more easily if Jokic is not in there. That thing will be wide open then. We might just see some small ball lineups both sides, right? I don't think Mike Malone wants to go with DeAndre Jordan, who is still dusty on the end of that bench. No, it's going to be like Zeke Naji and Julian Strawther, and just kind of like a fun, again, like a summer league game is what we look at here. But regardless of the situation, like Boston's playing 35 minutes a game because there's nobody else. And even if it's a blowout, he still gets those 35 minutes and he can pile up stats.
Yeah, I continue to believe you're the Brandon Boston whisperer, and he has been good, but there's just a nobody for this team. I thought I was being trolled as soon as all of the Murrays and the Williamsons and everybody's going down. I'm just like, what's happening here in New Orleans? This is so unfortunate, but either way, yeah, Brandon Boston's going to be the only other dude, honestly, that you trust now that even Jose Alvarado's out. It's crazy, but let me go with Devin Booker under. To me, this is crazy. I don't know how you give somebody. It was 30.5 at one point. It was 29.5, 28.5. I believe it's still at 27.5, but you can find some 28. So I would love this at 28. I might even be willing to play this at 27.5. I just haven't had to think about it that hard because it was so much higher than that when I was hitting it. But this is the OKC defense. And, you asked me before we get on the show, are you a little worried that Booker's usage is going to be 97% in this game? One, I'm not worried if it is that very high. Two, I don't think it's going to be that high. That's the point of the OKC defense, is not just we're going to make you take tough shots. It's we're not going to let you shoot if we don't want you to. And I don't know why you would want him to shoot. There's nobody else to do it very well, right, for this team. So I think they're just going to be ball hawking someone that they were already focused on ball hawking and force the ball out of his hands. I think there's probably a pretty good correlation here for a negatively correlated parlay to get over assists or 5+ assists, under 30 points, that type of stuff. You can even give yourself a little breathing room because it's at about 5.5 assists. You just take 5+ and you go under 30+ and a couple little alt babies. You're still looking at plus money because that's so negatively correlated. So I like adding that stuff together if you want. But the points at this high is just crazy. This is the number 1 defense in the league. Chet Holmgren makes it the number 1 by a bullet, right? But now without Chet, they're just the best and not clearly the best, is how I would phrase that for them. Still number one D rating over the last couple games without him. They're number one limiting the ball handler in the pick and roll. They are number 4 in transition, and they are number 1 limiting isolation. And they are, by the way, the number 1 mid-range defense as well, which is such a random thing for teams to be like, well, we stop you from shooting from 12 to 17 feet away. But they do, because all their defenders have 7-foot wingspans, despite being 6'6" or around that height. So it's going to be a problem for a guy like Booker, who I honestly put in a similar category to play style as like a Brandon Ingram with a better 3-point shot, better 3-point shooter, but similar in terms of also a very good mid-range game and is good going to the bucket and is a good enough ball handler to not necessarily be quicker than you, but to definitely be stronger and have the control going to the rim with the body control. A very similar player. Just mentioned earlier, Brandon Ingram had 10 in the first quarter while OKC was apparently still asleep. The alarm hadn't gone off yet. Then they woke up and they limited him to 8 points over 3 quarters. And once again, this is a similar type of player. But the reason I like the assists, if you wanted to take those as an over for Brandon Ingram, is that's the point. They're forcing the ball out of your hands. They are 4th worst against the spot up shot. So if you want to catch and shoot and stand around and wait for the pass from the ball handler, it's coming your way because they ain't going to let him get anything easy. And I think that's going to be the case again. I think this should be at like 25.5 points. I cannot believe this is close to 30.
Yeah, I mean, they're taking advantage of public perception that it's just like,
Right.
well, the other 2 stars are out, so Book's got to go for 30 here, right? I mean, maybe in some matchups he could do that, but like you're saying, yeah, the Thunder are going to impose their will. They're not going to let Book just do what he needs to do to keep them in this game. We like a blowout too. That's another way to cash this under potentially if OKC just rolls them here. So yeah, a lot of scenarios where Book does not go for 30.
Yeah, just be careful with betting a lot of overs in this game with OKC's defense and the fact that, SGA, J-Dub might not need to play too much of that fourth quarter. Just a cautionary tale. If it is close, I love SGA because this Suns team is terrible versus mid-range and pull-up shots and all that stuff. This is like the player to score against them. I just don't know if I trust like 31, 32 points for a guy who might only play 28, 29, 30 minutes max, right? So that's asking a lot. But either way, that's all the time we have in play props here in the NBA. Should also mention, got best bets up for the NBA for today. Also going to have play props for the NFL up for this Sunday's action as we're doing each and every week. So make sure to subscribe to that page. Don't miss anything. Until we see you next. Happy betting.